Hello there, friends. I'm Scott Wakefield, lead pastor at First Christian Church of Greene County, and I'm here today with
Evan Wolfe.
And we are going to have a
Coffee Convo.
Well done. With the awkward mouth look and everything. Thank you.
That's what I do. Awkward is what I do.
We're already in deep. Coffee Convos is an opportunity, friends, to learn about the work of God in Evan's life. And so it's a way for us as a congregation to get to know some folks in our congregation, outside of our congregation, and to have them tell the story of God's work in their lives. So we're super glad you're here with us. Friendly reminder, folks, that this is something we'd love to hear about you being here for. So jump in the comments, let us know you're here, and let's get into it.
Okay.
So Evan Wolfe, who are you? And how do you spell Wolf? And where are you from? And tell us about your family.
Wolf is spelled, at least with my name, with an E on the end.
True story.
I joke and say that I am not an animal. So we spell it with an E. And I currently live in Piney Flats, Tennessee, which is a really wonderful place to live, but it's kind of a place you drive through to get to somewhere else. We're 7 miles away from Bristol Motor Speedway. We're about 15 minutes away from Johnson City, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. All those good things. So we're right in the middle, kind of a sweet spot there.
How many of those minutes as I'm driving are Piney Flats? I've always wondered that because, I go to Johnson City and I'm like, oh, I'm in Piney Flats. And then suddenly I'm not.
Yeah, Piney Flats, we are, we're sneaky. You're in Piney and you don't realize it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It's kind of like the Twilight Zone.
So it happens early?
In a delightful way. Yeah.
Delightful way. Little known strange fact, I went to elementary school with a kid whose dad was a regular on the Twilight Zone.
Wow.
True story.
What sorts of roles did he have?
Bit parts. He said words. That's all I know.
Gracious. Have you ever watched a show of the Twilight Zone and been like, there's the guy? Have you been able to point him out?
Not that I recall.
Okay.
Because I was really fairly young. So, But this is not about me. This is about you. Tell us about your family and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, this last July, my wife Ashley and I celebrated our 10-year anniversary.
Nice.
Of being married. We dated for 4 years before that. So I am also, I should say this, under direct orders from her not to be corny and not to embarrass ourselves. So
that's pretty much
my best, sweet love. But I will not make any promises.
I was going to say, that's pretty much an invitation to do the awkward thing.
So, which will just happen naturally, I'm confident. But we've been married 10 years. She is a librarian at Northside Elementary in Johnson City.
I didn't know that.
And
cool.
She's been there 10 years too, almost as long as we've been married. And they've been really good to her. We love that community. We have 2 children. My oldest son is 5 years old, turned 5 in July. His name is Deacon. And our little girl will celebrate her 1-year birthday in November. So
good stuff.
Yeah.
5 and 1. You are busy people.
Yeah, we're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
We're loving it, though.
In the middle of it. In the middle implies that there's more coming. How many more
there
kids
is a miracle
years?
from the heavens, which history tells us has happened. But unless there's a miracle,
true,
we're holding strong at the 2 children and the 4 of us. Yeah.
I apologize ahead of time, Ashley, for already going into that place. So you are a fairly local to Johnson City, Piney Flats person. You grew up there?
I grew up actually in Carter County, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Just a mile away from the Elizabethton city limits.
Okay.
I graduated from Elizabethton High School in 2005.
Yeah.
So that's home. And then through a series of events, I ended up living in Piney Flats.
Yeah, we'll get to those events about ministry call and how you got to be in the crazy place of lead minister. Is that what y'all call it?
Poplar Ridge?
Lead minister?
I had for whatever worth titles are, I was the senior minister for a while, and then we hired some more staff, and leadership felt a title change for me was needed. So I'm lead minister.
Definitely. Lead pastor.
Lead
minister. It comes with a whole.
Yeah. I felt underqualified for senior minister. I definitely feel underqualified for lead minister. I'm like,
Yeah. I
so
felt too young for senior
that.
anything.
Yeah.
Even though I understood it wasn't necessarily an age thing, but I was that senior minister. Yeah. Good stuff. So you and I met when you were still in high school at Camp ACC, at Appalachian Christian Camp. Do you happen to remember how old you were in high school? Were you a junior, senior?
That's a great question.
I think you were an upperclassman.
So I think I was.
I've been here at First Christian for like 19-ish years.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
When I was in high school, Curtis Boer and Ryan Bader co-led the week of camp that I attended at that time, which is where we met.
Okay.
And Curtis was passing the baton to Ryan.
Yes.
And I was an upperclassman when Ryan officially took the reins. So do you remember who you were? Because that'll help clarify some of this.
I think it was a Ryan-only week that I'm remembering.
Okay. So it was probably junior or senior year then.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I remember you had a sweet black guitar.
Yeah?
Yeah, you played that black guitar. It was a rainy day.
We
all felt very cool.
I suspect that was somebody else's, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You seemed very competent. Or I was easily impressed.
I once was okay at guitar. Yeah. But I am not now, and my fingers would bleed.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you play guitar?
I did. Yes.
I mean, you were in youth ministry.
Yeah. Well, no. I was a children's minister.
You were never youth ministry?
I bypassed that.
Man.
Yeah. I did quasi-lead worship for a very long time, though, at my home church and youth ministry that I served in there.
Yeah.
So I played guitar a lot at one point. I don't play much anymore, and that's basically because of kids.
I understand how that rolls. So let's talk about you, what you're like.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
That I'm still trying to figure out.
We all are.
Yeah.
I mean, you. We're all trying to figure out you. You always strike me as intentional, careful, thoughtful.
This is why I like you, Scott. You're good for my ego.
Are those accurate terms?
Oh.
They seem to be.
Tell me the terms again. Thoughtful,
intentional, careful, thoughtful.
Yeah, I think
you're not a spaz like me.
Intentional and careful probably applies. I hope I'm thoughtful.
You just think thoughtful feels too highfalutin.
Yeah,
to say about oneself.
I think it gives me more credit than I deserve. I am careful. I tread carefully.
That's true. You do.
Yeah.
But not too slowly. Not at all. I think sometimes people feel like, oh, Scott, because I'm kind of an out there type of personality leader, that we're going too far too fast. You strike me as a good. We're going somewhere, and we know where we're going, and we have these steps, and these are the plans, and everybody's going to know the plans, and you'll know them well enough as we're doing them, but in a way that people will come along with because you have been careful and thoughtful. And then there are folks who are careful and thoughtful who are on this side and nothing ever happens because we over-engineer or we don't get anywhere or whatever. Pretty accurate for you?
I think so. I definitely want us to be going somewhere.
Sure.
And
you guys have been.
We try, you know. Just don't want to stand still. There was a quote that I heard years ago that just kind of sticks with me, and I think it's mostly true. I do have some problems with the quote, but I think it's mostly true, and I think you have to understand it in the context that it was given as well. But the quote is, you can recover from a mistake much easier than you can recover from stagnation. And I think that's true if there's been a prolonged period of stagnation and within a reasonable boundary of a mistake, because there are some mistakes that are more devastating than others. But in general, I find that quote to be true. So yeah, we try to be going somewhere, and we do outline our steps. My staff makes fun of me because I love spreadsheets, and we're not doing anything worthwhile unless there's like 5 colors on the spreadsheet.
Nice.
You know, so
Nice.
we've got to have a good array there.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm not cut from that cloth naturally. I'll do that stuff because it's important and helpful.
Mm-hmm.
You seem to me to be a little more cut from that cloth naturally.
I
and
enjoy
you dig
that.
it.
Yeah, I have some. I was never an executive minister, but I was kind of an associate minister for a while under our senior minister, and he would have me do lots of those organizational things, and so that's kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good preparation for where you are as lead minister.
Whatever. Yeah.
Are you breakfast or dinner?
Oh, breakfast.
Really?
Yeah.
Preach.
Well,
why?
So I
What makes you
love
say that?
breakfast. I don't very often eat breakfast, but breakfast is the better meal.
True story.
Biscuits and gravy. That's all I need to say.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But
So
there's
you
not
are-
been. I mean, if we were to list in the universe of possible breakfast options in food,
Yes.
they're all winners. But if
Um,
we were to list options for dinner,
There are plenty of losers.
there are plenty of losers.
Yes.
So
Totally
anything with
agree.
eggs in it
Totally agreed.
wins. Yeah.
I'm pretty picky and boring though, so I'm a little weird. A lot of breakfast stuff, love it.
Oh.
But my eggs have to be a certain way.
I'm even like plain
Not
oatmeal.
with things
Let's go.
and-
I mean, like,
Sure.
you know,
Sure.
we can do it.
So where's your favorite breakfast place?
Ooh.
And then I have another restaurant question.
So favorite breakfast place. Little off the map, little Carter County jewel. There's a little tiny restaurant called the Country Diner.
Where's that?
And it is there's a little community between Elizabethton and Johnson City,
Okay.
Tennessee,
Yeah.
in a community called Watauga.
Yeah.
And it's just
Huh.
it's just there. And
Country
they will
Diner?
cook it. Yep. They will cook it on the stove. Turn about 3/4 and put it on your
Yeah.
table. So that's
There are a
really
couple
great.
places like that here in Greene County. Yeah.
It's good. I mean, you can't. I'll stick with that. It's close to the top. Yep.
Good stuff. If there was a restaurant you had to eat at the rest of your life, what would it be?
For the rest of my life, like every meal,
The rest of your life.
every day. Okay,
The
for
rest of your
my
life.
Man, So this is probably not going to be that impressive, but Barbaritos. I love Barbaritos. Yep.
Yeah?
Yep. Mm-hmm. It's good.
I'm a fan.
Burrito tacos.
Yeah?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I've been on a Chipotle kick lately, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, that's gonna cast me in a negative light with some people, but Chipotle tries.
Does that cast me in a negative light?
No, I just
Am I?
No, but you know, you don't have to be my twin to be my brother, but Chipotle tries to do what Barbaritos does so well.
True story. Are you a fighter or a peacemaker?
Oh,
And you had to choose one of the two: more fighter or more peacemaker. More fighter. My wife.
more peacemaker.
More peacemaker. You are.
Yeah.
What's your wife of those?
So we're both very similar in that way, but so I was doing some marriage counseling, premarital counseling with a couple yesterday,
Yeah.
and this is something I say. We're both pretty peacemaker people, but she is the daughter of a lawyer and I'm a preacher, and so if need be, we both can flip the switch.
That's awesome.
You know? So it gets fun sometimes.
What kinds of contexts out of which the switches get flipped?
Oh, man. We really don't flip the switch often.
And we flip the switch fairly often.
Okay, yeah, we're pretty peaceful people.
In fact, we're looking for the switch to flip it in most contexts.
Yeah. So we're going to dip into some of my premarital counseling lectures here. Calendar used to be really big, and then we're like, hey, we're living in modern times. Let's just share a calendar.
Yeah.
And so we can see what's going on in each other's lives, and then we can have that conversation of, hey, you know what? It would be good, Evan, if you were home with the family some this week.
At this.
You know. So that really is helpful. Her love language is quality time.
Yeah.
So that took me, when we were dating, it took me a while to learn that. And then once I figured that out, like, oh, this isn't as hard as it needs to be.
Yeah. My wife and I fought about the calendar thing, and I have tried many times to get her to adopt a digital family, all of us. It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to
I
happen.
do have to confess something, that my son has started playing soccer, and she
As
is
he and all of us
rock
should.
star. she is a rock star because I preached, put it on the calendar for years. She is killing it. She put his whole schedule on the calendar,
Mm-hmm.
and I was asking her all these questions, and she's like, "Are you not reading the calendar anymore?"
Clearly,
And
you don't
so
look at your phone.
I have become the learner there. So
Nice.
yeah.
So we have a lot of questions
Oh goodness.
that have been submitted. So let's do some rapid fire.
Oh gosh. Okay.
We'll start quick, easy, rapid fire stuff, and then go a little bit serious, and then we'll get into church ministry and leadership stuff. Would you rather have a robot or a helpful monkey?
Oh, if I have to choose one, I think I would choose a monkey. Robots always carry with it the chance of
Taking over the universe?
taking over the universe.
Is that where you were headed with it? It's
yeah.
like
Insurrection.
AI and they
I was
just go
looking for the
off
word
and-
insurrection, you know,
Oh, that's good.
and I think I could take a monkey. I don't think I could take a robot. I mean, I think I could win in that fight.
Hey, that's a good answer.
You know.
Me likey, that's a good answer. I would have still been perseverating over whether we meant helpful robot and helpful monkey, and
Yeah.
that was but I was, okay. So, what's a favorite family or church tradition?
Ooh. So every Thanksgiving, so I come from a family, my grandmother, she is one of the best people ever, for
course.
lots of reasons.
She's your grandmother.
But of course. But she comes from a family that has lots of siblings, and those siblings were super tight. And most every holiday, we would have a large family get-together.
Cool.
And so there would be 30, 40 of us in this get-together. And it was it's
like
kind
in
of
the living room, dining room,
yeah,
at
in
the
the living
house.
room. And
Yeah.
it didn't used to be that large of a family, but as we grew, we kind of had to go to some different spaces. But I love it. And my favorite thing
Cool.
is at Thanksgiving, great food, but also we will play football after that. We affectionately call it the Turkey Bowl. Yes, we had jerseys at one point. Yes, there is a trophy.
Nice.
Because if you're going to do it, there needs to be a trophy.
If you're going to have a burger, have a burger.
Yes. There needs to be winners. And there will be losers.
I agree.
You know.
Why would you do anything if there are not winners and
I
losers?
mean, you know.
And we designate who they are and
Yeah. I mean,
shame them for
you
life.
know, we were choosing the league that my 5-year-old son was going to play soccer in, and one of the stipulations was they have to keep score. That may,
Oh,
you
absolutely.
know, again,
Yeah.
may,
This everybody
yeah.
wins thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, for the record, I am the reigning annual Wakefield Family Fall Retreat holder of the Euchre Cup.
Oh,
We play euchre.
that's
Yeah.
quite impressive.
Yeah. All right. So
Once a year? Oh, fall retreat. You told me that. Yeah, fall retreat. Okay.
we just
Have you had that yet, or is that on the
that
books?
is in about 4 weeks.
Okay, nice. Are you prepping? Are you like
I don't
ready?
even prep.
You just wake up ready to go. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go.
If you wrote a book,
Oh gosh,
the Evan Wolfe book, what would the title be?
like about my life.
Something
So,
you're good at, your
I
life,
fancy-
something you care about, whatever.
You know, I'm always late to the game with some things, so I'm probably about 20 years too late with this. But I may start a blog one day because they're still out there. And I would call my book the same thing I would call the blog, which is a quote from my grandfather.
Okay.
Don't rush off.
Don't rush off,
Mm-hmm.
meaning
Don't be in a hurry. Sometimes there are things in life that are worth
simmering
a
in.
longer conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
True story. Like coffee convos.
For real.
Although with me, it's a little bit hyper and ADHD along the way. But if you could only read one book of the Bible for the rest of your life, which would it be?
Philippians.
And if you could only teach from one book of the Bible for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Philippians.
Boom. Boom. Have you had any cool nicknames over the years?
No.
Have you had any uncool and awkward nicknames over the years?
Not really. I wish I could. There's just, I wanted nicknames.
You did?
I did, yeah.
I always did too. That's strange.
I didn't even have like something I wanted. I just
You wanted
a nickname.
So did you grow up with a sense of not feeling like you had enough of a place and rootedness in life? Because that's where my nickname thing came from. Because I would hear other people with nicknames and be like, I want a nickname.
Just to clarify, you felt like you hadn't put roots down?
Yeah.
And that's why
we moved a lot as a kid. And like if someone knew my name, I'd be like, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Let alone nickname.
Yeah.
So I remember hearing in middle school and at late elementary school, some kids would be, calling each other nicknames because they grew up together. And I had moved, half a dozen times by the time I got to, third grade. So, that's where my nickname thing came from.
Yeah.
And I often call people by a shortened form of their name or nickname because of it. So where does your nickname thing come from?
I'm not sure. I've never explored that side of my life before.
I wouldn't be surprised if you've never been asked that question.
I don't think we share the same root.
No, I don't think we do either.
Because I did not. I have the almost exact opposite.
That's my sense.
We were very rooted, very. My parents still live in the house I grew up in, and I didn't move very far from it. I thought I would, but I didn't. And I don't know. I maybe mine just comes from being not interesting enough to warrant a nickname.
Let's work on that, Evan.
But I will say, my name growing up was very unusual.
Evan?
I did not meet another Evan until I was 17. Yep.
17.
17. Yep.
Evan
17.
Seven. Just trying to be punny. So if you had to pick an animal other than wolf for your last name, what would it be?
We will go. Two things come to mind. One is Hammerhead Shark, and that's the full. Because
that's specific.
you need to make a statement.
Evan Hammerhead Shark.
That would stand out in a resume. That would stand out in the business card.
True story.
Hammerhead Shark.
What church do you go to? That one where that Hammerhead? Oh, say no more.
It's like,
there's
only one of those. So that's probably top. I would probably also throw honey badger.
That's a good one.
Because you don't mess with honey badger.
No, you don't. Yeah. Do you have an inner honey badger?
I can, to go back to a previous metaphor, I can flip a switch if I need to.
Please don't.
We can go there.
No switch flipping today, please. Let's talk church ministry.
Well, you're the guy that, for real, you're the guy that I call to bounce ideas off of. So I feel like in some way this may be a regurgitation of years of Scott conversations.
Not at all. If you could go back in time, the background being folks that we talk ministry some. If you could go back in time to...
Are we in a DeLorean? Are we in a starship like Star Trek going around the sun? Do we possess the ability, like Superman, to reverse the Earth? How are we doing time travel here? Is this an Infinity War situation in which our decisions are going to create multiple universes, or is this this will affect...
I don't think we have butterfly effect, multiple universe craziness going on.
So we're just talking go back and change it.
But you've nerdified and befuddled this whole thing for me, so I'm not sure how to answer because I kind of understand Superman around the globe, but that's about it.
Okay. So we're not reversing things. We're just going back and then creating a new story. Back to the Future.
Yes. This is DeLorean, I think.
Okay.
Yes. If we could go back in time to
Marty
February...
McFly, are you Doc Brown? Is that how this is working? I'm not smart enough to be Doc Brown. I feel like you would qualify for that more than I would.
No,
But I'm also not cool enough to be Marty either.
Nobody is.
So
Nobody is. Although I was in love with Elizabeth Shue, I think it was.
Oh,
Who
you
was
know.
in the first one?
is that Marty's girlfriend?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I do have an inner crazy doc. If you could go back in time to February 2020, what advice would you give yourself to prepare for the coming COVID craziness when it came to church leadership stuff?
So this is in the context of church leadership.
Yeah.
I would say,
Or other.
yeah,
It doesn't have to be just church, but
I would say, I want to give you an answer that, well, it's going to sound very spiritual, but I mean it to be very practical.
yeah.
Now is a great time to lean on prayer. And there have been lots of ideas in my mind about that subject, about that practice. Everything from personal pursuits of that to what I will say organizational pursuits in terms of how you lead your people for that. And I wish I could say, even though it's been a year and a half or whatever the time from that moment you cited, wish I could say that we've led in that direction, but it has only recently resurfaced in my mind of you still have not done this. And you
enough of that as a part of the process for you, your staff, your leaders, your congregation, everybody involved. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
So
went straight in.
That's just from being very aware of my own deficiency in that.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's good.
I would also tell myself that remember the people you have around you. Specifically, I really work and serve with some awesome people. Staff, eldership. We got a great core of deacons, and all my fears as the world shut down were just displaced the further we got into it because of the people I work with. They are
the strength of relationships and the quality of the people was the thing that
they're pretty great.
Good stuff. Prayer, people. Is there anything in that process that you feel like you all have done well, looking back? And were some good decisions to do this or not to do this or to...
Golly. I think I could give you a list on the good things. And I know there are things we could have improved on, but we were all just kind of making it up as we went. At least it felt that way for us. I would say we communicated pretty well. And I can think of, as I say that, I'm aware of things and moments where we could have done better. But we really, we have new avenues of communicating now that we developed then. Just some things we needed to do for a long time. But everything from social media to emails to letters to just personal calls. So I'm proud of what we were doing in that moment. Leadership had lots of conversations about improving facilities, lots of those things. So we did tons of that. And we added a missionary right in the middle. We weren't physically meeting, but our leadership became aware of a missionary in need, and we brought that person on. That's probably one of the things that I'm very proud of, that in a time where some people were having to cut things, we added a missions partner. We developed, and it's still very much in development, but we developed an online streaming presence, and of which we had none before.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's things that I could definitely just add to the list there. Yeah.
What do you think? And maybe this isn't just Poplar Ridge, but churches generally. What do you see for yourself, for Poplar Ridge, for churches generally, as some of the greatest challenges that are going to continue to be the case in church ministry? Ongoing challenges coming out of. Not that we're necessarily out of, in a sense, but
I think
because here in East Tennessee we're coming toward the end of a surge.
COVID, I think, is going to be with us for a very long time, and so that's just going to be a continual conversation.
Yeah.
I think the conversation, and my staff and I are having this, of digital in person.
Yeah.
And we are pro. I love working with people that I work with, and they push me in so many good ways. I am pro technology. I am pro. I mean, hence the support of this and things.
Yeah.
I love. We are living in such a great time, and I don't have any new thoughts to add to things that people have already said about that. I'm very excited about it, but also just understanding of what is church. Like, what we can do online is of great benefit, but like, what are some of those fundamental church things? And I'm already seeing a pretty heavy divide having emerged and even emerging now amongst some of these thought leaders that a lot of us subscribe to. And so that's really interesting.
Yeah,
and
I've noticed that too.
Sensing my pull there, or maybe ways that I might be leaning. But I just am a firm believer in the physical gathering of people. And I'm a firm believer in what we can do digitally as well, but I think they don't accomplish the same goal, and I think we're going to be fighting a cultural Christianity and even an idea from the culture that's going to be very hesitant towards the physical gatherings, and I think that's much to our deficit, much to people's deficit.
Yeah. Agreed. Well said. We're going to have to be specific about the goals we're achieving with digital and in person, and differentiating those things clearly, and making sure our resources toward those ends that are different are toward those goals. And yet, we're all using digital, electronic, tech stuff, even in the in-person. And here we are, doing something personal, and so I feel like a lot of this for me is not yet clear, though I think we've done some things to differentiate so far, but we haven't gone one way or the other, and are trying to still sort of do both. We're doing something right now that is personal in the sense that we're having a conversation, people are a part of it, and yet they're not here with us. That's using technology. I do definitely lament how easily the in-person experience is something that many people can let go of quickly. And I'm not sure they yet understand what they're missing. Yeah.
I think, we, FCC is larger than our church, but our church is kind of on the side that is a little untypical of East Tennessee churches too, But I think, regardless, FCC, Poplar Ridge, if I can make a statement, we are doing now what traditionally mega churches have done for
I've
a
thought
long
about
time.
this recently too. Yes.
And so this is an adage. I forget which leader years ago I heard this from, but like, there really is no technology or no methods that ever truly die. They just get repackaged.
Yeah.
For example, the wheel, the wagon. Well, wagons are still around in that form, but you could argue that they have changed and morphed into what we have as cars. And we still have old school wagons. They're still doing their thing.
Yeah.
So I think...
In fact, some of us still drive something that's akin to...
Yeah. So I think that maybe an imperfect example here, but this is where my mind goes. We're doing something that a lot of larger churches have done for a long time now because, one, there was a crisis or a need that just pushed us where we had to do it or we weren't going to have anything going on.
Right.
And so we're still, Poplar Ridge, we're still catching up to that. But at the same time, those guys have been having that conversation for a long time. And again, it's not apples to apples here. People talk about the revolution that's happened. Well, I don't know if it's as much of a revolution in methodology as we may think it is. I think it's a change in how people are thinking. And there's some underlying fears. People are less hesitant to be in rooms together, depending on, so we've got some of those things going on. But I'm less, now that we've got some of that behind us, I'm just not convinced that it is as wholesale radical as we thought it was.
A lot of stuff.
Certainly, it's more available.
A lot of stuff early on in the pandemic was, it's a sea change of revolution towards digital, and we're all going to be using words like phygital, and I do think much more than it sounded early on. It's more churches doing stuff that a bunch of larger churches have been doing for a long time. And we're having to figure out some other things.
Yeah, no new technology was created, really, at least in the church sphere, really.
Right.
I mean, we just began talking a little bit more with each other, learning from those people that have been doing it.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on in my mind. Still working it out. But,
tell us about your cool socks.
Oh, these are in favor of the University of Tennessee. Go Vols. I made the choice to wear these today because it was a hard weekend. It's always a hard weekend, but you just gotta be together. You gotta weather the hard times and the good times, because there will be good times again. Please let there be good times again.
I hope that is true.
So, yeah.
What's Poplar Ridge like now in ways that Poplar Ridge wasn't? And how long have you been there now? On staff, you've been there a good while now.
So I came on full-time staff in 2009. Just graduated Milligan, then college.
Yes.
Now it's university. Go Buffs. In the summer of 2008, I did a ministry internship with Poplar Ridge.
Okay.
And so, it's.
So you've been there 13-ish years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm now in my, if you don't count the internship, but if you do count the internship, I'm in my fourth role there.
Ministry is ministry, whether your paycheck's signed by the church
true.
or
it's true.
Somebody else. It's all God's money. So let's say 5.
Yeah. They hired me on as a children's minister. Managed birth through 5th grade. I did not know what I was doing. That church believed in me far more than they probably should have. And then we had a change in our senior ministry, or senior minister, and my role changed under that. I was the small group and discipleship minister.
That's right.
But it really was a catch-all term for whatever.
For associate of all things.
And I loved it. That was a great time. And then I became, what I'm doing now is a different title, but what I'm doing now, towards the end of 17, beginning of 18.
Okay.
That's when we transitioned there.
All right.
So we've changed a lot, from everything from remodeling physical structure. I mean, it's really, I haven't given this a lot of thought, just to be honest with you, but in my time there, I've seen a lot of staff changes, a lot of natural changes that happen in those regards. Staff changes, leadership changes. I can think about people who've died, a lot of births, all those pastoral things that we think about. A lot of changes to our building. We've remodeled, done some things, changes to service and methodology, changing of the way we do some events and things like that. So we've had a lot of those changes, changing of service times, vision, mission statements, those sorts of things.
Yeah. I know you well enough to know that where you were, where you are, you've got thoughts about what the next thing or two or however many things. You've got thoughts and plans for those things.
Lots of thoughts.
Lots of thoughts. Careful, thoughtful.
Yes, right.
But let's not.
There are colors and charts.
Oh, there should be, absolutely. Yeah. What is the next thing or two that you foresee Poplar Ridge needing to do, work on for your next? And I don't mean phase of, numeric growth, although that may accompany it, but of health and becoming who God's made you all to be. What's the next thing or two?
Oh, that's great.
Or that you're working on.
So I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too much,
Okay.
but there's been a lot of good conversations in some of our leadership and especially with our staff about vision for next year.
Uh-huh.
And we
2022.
2022.
Uh-huh.
And so we usually organize our year around a theme or an emphasis.
Uh-huh.
And so this year our theme is Unleashed, and we are preaching through each quarter the book of Acts.
Hmm.
And so we've divided that up into 4 quarters worth of material.
Yeah.
And so we'll preach a little bit, and then we'll get on to something else, and then we'll come back to Acts and pick up.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the end of October, we will have concluded our time in that book. And that's our theme, just seeing how the church was born and spreading.
Mm-hmm.
And that, our time in that, has brought about a lot of great things. We've got some new teams and organizational structures that have developed this year that have been really great, but that has propelled our thinking into next year. And it's been really exciting kind of having some of those conversations. We're reading some books together. Again, I don't want to give too much away, but I'm really pumped to think about what 2022 is going to be in terms of theme and organization, kind of building off of some of the things we've seen this year. That was vague and specific. I hope that answers what you were looking for. So I'm really excited for next year. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I'm excited for the rest of this year too, but
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
When you look back over all those changes and knowing you've got thoughts and plans, and you and your leadership and staff are thinking and praying through those things, for you, what are some of the things about church leadership that have been the most challenging in those years and changes? And then, the good things too eventually, but what's been the most challenging, or some things that have been lessons for you in that have been difficult?
Yeah. Well, I think Poplar Ridge has been the best church for me. And I tell this to any intern we get or new staff. It's a church that's going to love you, and they need to know the reason behind changes.
Sure.
But for the most part, we're going to find a group of people that are ready to just do something. And I owe a lot of that to my predecessors and people that have gone before me, because they cultivated and they had to plow some ground that was really worked up in a good way when I got here. So I am incredibly thankful for that.
There definitely was some long-term, steady health
Yeah.
and growth that laid a lot of that foundation for you, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and God has just blessed that church really well. But this is a church that's just going to love ministers, and they have loved me and my family very well, and it's really neat to see. And this is going to sound really corny. They love Jesus. Like this church, my church, just wants to see His kingdom advance, and I just see our people light up whenever we do things like bring on a missionary, or there are people who are in the baptistry or things like that. They keep the main thing, and that's really
You can feel that
powerful.
celebratory.
Yeah.
This is the thing right here. Yeah.
And so most often my prayer is just don't mess this up.
Sure.
Yeah. Don't try to overcomplicate that.
Sure.
And I'll be honest, I forgot your question.
Well, I was going to say, that's great and all, and I don't disagree with you, and I'm sure all that's true. But what have been some of the personal leadership hardships,
Gotcha.
challenges in all of that for you?
Yeah. Man, I don't know how my mind got off on those things.
Well, you wanted to make sure you were positive
sure.
before you said something that felt perhaps perceived as difficult or negative.
It is the leaving of people, and I mean that as an umbrella term. As I was talking about leadership, I'm thinking about a couple of elders that I had that was serving under who've died, and they died unexpectedly. And I love the pastoral part of what I do. And so I still see their faces, even though it's been years, I still see their faces. And I think about them every week. There's a few of those leaders that are really important. But also, as the umbrella term there, just people leaving. And people leave, as you know, churches for all kinds of reasons.
Yeah.
And there are some really good reasons, and some understandable reasons. But just, I love the people aspect of what I do. And just, even if people leave for good reasons, it just makes you sad when they can't be. You spend all this time serving together and getting to know their families, and then when the Lord takes them elsewhere, it just makes you really cherish. And that was one thing coming out of COVID, and this is going to sound cheesy, and I think so many of us have said this, but just not taking for granted some of the things that I did before, when it was arguably easier in some ways. Not that it's, I'm not going to make myself feel like a martyr here, because there's Christians in the rest of the world that have it much harder than I do. But there are some things that were easier, some people that were here in 2019 that aren't here now. Right. Moved away or have died or for whatever reason. And so it just, I have this renewed sense every day of, this is special. Don't take it for granted.
This calling of ministry and being a part of the kingdom of God and a body of people who are about Jesus in the world. Yeah. In that vein, what are you excited about? We'll end on these two. What are you excited or encouraged about? And then what's God teaching you?
Excited about ministry wise? Just in general? Oh, well, the big thing in my life is, the kids right now.
Yeah. I figured that's what you were going to say.
My little girl's going to turn 1, and I just, it's the best thing when I get to wrestle my 5-year-old and then hold my little girl. Not at the same time, because that would be really hard.
Well,
and that would be kind of dangerous.
Sometimes
for the
parenting requires
sometimes,
both of those.
So
holding off while,
but Ashley and I are really loving that. That's probably number one.
Sure.
We're also hoping to have a date night very soon. That's just a little footnote. So we're trying really hard to schedule that.
Hey, Poplar Ridge peeps.
So no, that's a shout out to our all the grandparents involved in my life, because they really do.
Cool.
They're awesome. But we're excited about that.
Yeah.
Ministry wise, again, we're excited for the next year. We got some good things planned. Something really cool. We were kind of talking about this in the hallway before we sat down.
Yeah.
We've brought on some new people in our staff, and they are sharp, and they're bringing a lot to the table, and we're having good conversations, specifically about our onboarding of new members. Yeah. And we've retooled some of our classes, and we've had 2 or 3 rounds of beta testing, so to speak. Yeah. And that's. I'm just loving what I'm seeing. Before I drove here, I met with some folks who just completed our class for some follow-up things, and
to see how it went,
and I'm loving the difference that some of that's creating.
Yeah, I think a number of churches that are, I'm not exactly sure how to say all this, but continuing to flex and adapt in ways that we need to, are putting emphasis on that process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Yeah, I would say the same thing about us. Similar kind of thing is we've retooled some of that, and I think I wouldn't say we're done with beta testing, but we're close to being done with beta testing.
Are we ever finished tinkering?
I think
that's what makes people
and I had this
frustrated with our job, because we're always
and I had this conversation earlier today with someone who knows ministry well. Yeah. My dad. Okay, it was with my dad. Yeah. So that we are now in a world where we're having to learn to continually flex how we strategize some of our things and tweak this and tweak that, and in order to get engagement and to bring people along the spiritual growth process in ways that we kind of were able to say this, and put people in sort of programs and boxes and just say, here's what we do. We're having to do things a little different nowadays and continually flex and tweak and beta test as we are going nowadays. Yeah, good stuff. So what's God teaching you?
God's teaching me. I would go spend a lot of time thinking about prayer these days, and praying, trying to pray, growing in prayer. I'm not doing it yet.
Yeah, actually, prayer's so important. That's it.
And then I'm going to throw out something. I don't know if this will be unexpected. My belief in expository preaching of and I'm a fan of preaching. And I'm a fan of Bible study, topical or otherwise. Let's just do it. But there has been a renewed interest in me to just exposit a book, exposit a lengthy passage, and tie it into the grand narrative of Scripture. And I do sermon calendar planning, and I keep all of those things kind of as a reference, just to sort of see where we've been, what we've emphasized, and try to have a diet of things.
Yeah. You're not all this, you're not all that.
And again, this is not a podcast about preaching, but
bring it.
I'm a firm believer that as a pastor, you need to be aware of people's needs. But I think, and I love sermon series, and I think there's a lot of good in that. And I do those things. But there's also a way to accomplish that will allow you to exposit the Scriptures. And because I think they're set up to do that. And so I'm just loving rediscovering that.
Cool.
And I feel like it's becoming more popular to say that, but it's still not the popular thing. And so I kind of like. I'm well aware in our circles. I'm well aware that it's not popular in our circles. I'm not a rebel, but
bring it.
But it makes me feel a little rebellious, so I like it. Yeah.
I'm straight up with you. That's for sure. Yeah. I do think that over time, when we haven't said, hey, let's study the Scriptures together as they are presented to us, I think that if we don't spend enough time in that, we come away thinking the Scriptures were written to and about me, because the ways that I'm filtering the stuff that's communicated to me is directed at things that are coming from the ground up, the culture up, me up, as if the topics lead in the first place. Now, it's fine to do topical if topical is a biblical theology of the ways the topics show themselves to us in the Scriptures. But I think that that we end up over time, if we're doing what I would say is expository, we have said we're submitting ourselves to the way that the Scriptures talk about us. And I think that's super helpful and important in a bunch of ways that I'm super glad to hear you speak about there. That was not what I expected, but I love it.
I just I work ahead.
Yeah.
Sometimes to
of course you
a
do.
lot of times to our benefit.
Hey, we've been talking for 15 minutes now.
Okay.
Everybody listening is like,
Okay.
of course you
I
work ahead.
and so I'm already thinking about 2022's preaching calendar, and like I've already got some notes scribbled, and I'm gonna log some time away to like nail it down and get with our preaching team and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because now's the time to do it, and it morphs and changes, but go ahead and get it down, because I think the Spirit's going to lead us now. But I woke up. I love preaching, and I love being a pastor, and I woke up this morning just eager to do everything I had to do today, but thinking to myself, I can't wait to do preaching stuff. Yeah.
Good stuff. That's how the Word does the work, through preaching, and not just from the pulpit, but the gospel being communicated through God's people. Good stuff. Thank you for coming.
No problem. Thanks for having me. I'm a fan of the podcast too, so this is a big honor.
You're a part of the throngs.
Can I give you just something that I've really appreciated from Coffee Convos? So months ago, we were looking to hire a new worship minister at our place.
Yeah.
And when you interviewed Chris Carlson, I was tuned into that. Chris is a mutual friend.
Yeah.
And I gave a link to that coffee convo to our elders and said, there's some things that they have talked about in here that I would like us to think about as we retool that position. So there's been residual.
Chris says, you're welcome.
We had him at our place in July to do a concert.
That's right.
And he's so talented. I don't know. Do you tell him that enough? Like,
okay. A little.
Chris, you're really talented.
A little bit.
And my secret reason for having Chris, though, amongst his talent and his sweet nature, was that I knew he would play James Taylor songs, and he delivered.
Oh, no question.
In great ways.
Yeah.
So.
What percentage of these songs do you want to be JT songs? Because I'll do it all. 100%. I'll do it.
So.
Good stuff.
He gave me what I wanted. So.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Thanks, Scott.
So.